Hello and welcome back to In the Gray Area with Revv Health. I am Brittany.
And I'm Travin.
And last week we kind of dove into the subject on sex. Today we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes made in HRT and how you can prevent those from happening.
This one's going to be so important because I think a lot of times people just cannot get out of their own way when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opinions out there, and especially with women, because they're Googling, they're talking to all their friends, they're going to multiple providers and getting different opinions and information. And then it's not only confusing, it's extremely frustrating for them and for us.
Yeah. Well, it just causes so much setback, and it's like you can never get ahead. They never want to give it enough time to actually let things work. And it's like, I get it. There's an element of being impatient because everyone wants results fast and right away. And I think that's the main thing people need to realize is this is a long process. Optimizing your hormones is definitely not a quick fix. I mean, it will fix a lot of things, but you have to give it enough time to work, and I think people, even with testosterone, for example, I mean, even 18 months to 24 months after you start, you're still noticing improvement and benefits. And so it's it's a long road. It's not just something that's going to overnight, you're going to be this huge change.
Well, nobody got here overnight in the first place anyways. So you have to be realistic, you have to be patient, and you have to follow direction. I think that's one of the main things. I personally, with a lot of the females, see that they are not reading through, when they get their welcome.
Nobody reads it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of that information is in there, and it's in there to help them. And it really will. It'll guide, especially, that first couple weeks, first month, and getting all the levels saturated.
Yeah,
that's really, really important.
How many times do we say it? We talk about this over and over again, that the patients that have the best outcomes are the ones that actually listen to everything we say, and they do everything we say. They follow the advice. They don't deviate. They don't stray. And those people habitually have the best outcomes. They
do, but that goes for anything, anywhere. I would really encourage everybody, whether you're working with us or another clinic, if you are spending the money and time to work with the clinic, trust them, trust the process, and give them a chance instead of reaching out to anybody and everybody and Googling everything under the sun.
Yeah. Getting multiple different opinions and getting advice from, like you mentioned it, Google or Reddit or Facebook or your friends. I mean, that's just going to cause all sorts of confusion, and it's going to set you back.
Yeah, and as long as you're using bioidentical hormones, everything you're doing is safe and only going to be beneficial. I know we get people that reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a sore throat. Is it from my hormones?
Yeah, everything's caused by the hormones when you start hormones.
Yes.
Yeah. I know for the guys, one of the biggest things that I see that causes the most problems is getting on, whether it's Facebook groups or Reddits or any of these forums about TRT or, men's health. I mean, there's so much misinformation and it's all over the board, but people, you can get into such a rabbit hole and a deep dive and get all these opinions that it really can drive you crazy, wondering if okay, am I doing the right thing, or should I be blocking estrogen, or should I not be blocking estrogen, or is my dose too high, or is it too low? I mean, there's just so much bad information out there. And I think you said it perfectly, trust the process, trust the provider that you're working with. And if you have any questions about your therapy, go to your provider. Don't go to a Facebook group. Don't go to a Reddit forum.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of misinformation and opinions that are contradicting. So what do you think one of the biggest mistakes are that you see?
I think trying to make changes too fast. I think that people don't, quite understand how long that it takes for your body to kind of stabilize and reach what we call a steady state of, to where you're fully saturated with these hormone levels. And so I'm going to use testosterone, for example. Typically, if a guy starts on injectable testosterone, it's going to take about 5 weeks for his body to reach steady state at that, dose of testosterone that he's on. And so, realistically, if you're making any sort of evaluation on your testosterone therapy, it's going to take 5 weeks to reach steady state. Then you're going to want to at least give yourself, 3 to 4 weeks of see how you feel at that level before, determining, okay, should I make a change or is something off? And I think, when it's all said and done, I mean, that's 8 weeks realistically of giving something a try before you want to move on. And I think that people will expect results too fast, or they'll feel sick, or maybe they are sick, or they don't get good enough sleep, and they'll think that it's their hormones and they want to change something right away.
That's another good reason though, why we do the follow-up blood work when we do, is we really want to give each patient that chance to kind of get those saturated levels, kind of balance and regulate and see how well their body is adjusting and absorbing, because everyone's different.
Everyone's
So
different.
what works for one person's not always going to work for everybody.
I know. And it's funny because isn't that like the most common question we get is like, well, where should my level be at? Or what are you trying to get
Yeah.
my level to?
Yeah. And, overcoming that, because I think that that's one thing that people talk about. They're always talking about a number. So yes, we do blood work. We get numbers. That gives us an idea where you're at and how well you're absorbing and, working within your own treatment plan. But it's really about symptom relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't really care about a number.
No, and that's mainly why we don't really stress the blood work a lot throughout the year after that. Like you said, we'll do follow-up labs to kind of see how your body's adjusting to it initially. But from there, like, we're not going to make you come in and do blood work every 2 or 3 months.
I think for females, it's a little bit different because, I think that we're a little more in tune with our body and even I would say probably sensitive. So, more on high alert and worried about things. So I'll get patients that are new sometimes that I hear from right away that are like, oh my gosh, I can feel this. I get this benefit. Libido being the first, or better sleep.
Yeah.
And then also like with progesterone, that's something that mainstream doesn't really talk a whole lot about and is underdosed a lot. So that's something that I'll have a lot of women like really concerned about their dosing with progesterone and trying to kind of overcome the idea that, a higher dose is bad. Is something that I see and hear a lot when it's actually extremely relaxing and calming, and you're only going to get positive.
Yeah,
effects.
I think hormones are kind of the exception to the rule, where a lot of times in medicine we hear things like the minimum effective dose, and I think that is generally a good rule to apply for a lot of medicine. But with hormones, that's not really the case. You want to have typically the optimal maximal dose that gets you the most symptom relief and the most therapeutic benefit with, negating any sort of side effects that might come with it. One of the things I know it's frustrating because you get this a lot with your women, but when someone comes to you and they're complaining about a symptom and maybe they've Googled it or they're saying that, this hormone is causing me this symptom. And we know without a doubt that the hormones we prescribe don't cause some of these symptoms that people complain about, but you want to try to be sympathetic to the patient and you want to try to not make them sound crazy or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I know for you especially, you get super frustrated because you deal with that a lot.
Yeah, I do. But I would also say like you clearly came to us for a reason. Like you were lacking this with your PCP or whatnot. So, you really, like, once again, you need to trust us. You need to trust the process.
Yeah,
and
I've heard you have to say that many times.
Yeah. And, and it is like we repeat ourselves over and over and over. And I just have to remember that every patient is like new to this. And by the time that they actually come to us, they are at that point where there is some desperation and that's why they're here. Yeah. And so just like reminding ourselves that and being sympathetic to what they're going through but reminding them that it's really, really important that they are not Googling and they're not talking to all their friends, and that they're not, more than anything, talking to multiple providers. So let's dive a little bit into the other areas of where patients can benefit from, like outside of hormones, when they start their journey with us.
Yeah, things that will help them be more successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll have people reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not losing weight yet. Well, it's been a couple weeks and I want to ask you first and foremost, like, has your diet changed? Are you exercising? Are you drinking enough water?
Yeah. You can take all the hormones in the world, but if you are living a terrible lifestyle, it's not enough to overcome that.
Yeah, it has to be a complete change. If you want to be healthier and feel better, you've got to make other changes than just popping a pill.
Yeah, it's kind of like meeting us halfway, meeting the hormone therapy halfway. We'll do our part. I mean, we can definitely optimize your hormones, and that's honestly the easy part. The hard part is on the patient to, use those as part of an overall healthy lifestyle and make sure that you're exercising right, make sure that your nutrition is dialed in and you're sleeping well and, doing all the normal right lifestyle habits that we all know we should be doing.
Yeah, and sleep is extremely important, and I don't think that people really talk about that enough, especially if you're stressed day to day or if you are a mom to young children or parenting in general. So, making sure that you're taking your magnesium, women, the progesterone at night, those two things together are amazing. Also, why don't you explain a little bit more about melatonin and the benefits behind that? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there too.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation. I mean, just even the mindset of that if you take too much melatonin, your body's going to not produce it on its own anymore. It's kind of the same thing we hear about with a lot of the other hormones. But no, melatonin has been super helpful for me. And we have quite a few patients now that are on, high dose pharmaceutical grade melatonin, and they're sleeping amazing on it.
And it's one of the building blocks. I mean, if you're getting a good night's sleep, then you're waking up more refreshed, and then you're actually going to be feeling better even with everything else that you're doing and taking as well.
Yeah. But I know, just thinking about like all the patients we have and the ones that have been most successful and have the best outcomes. We already talked about the ones that listen to us and do the right things, but part of that is taking our advice on their lifestyle. And those are the people that get so much more out of the therapy. Like I know the guys, for example, that are successful on testosterone, the guys that can really optimize their levels and really handle like these high levels of testosterone are also the guys that are living a very healthy lifestyle. You can't just, you can't carry a lot of body fat and eat like crap and then take a bunch of testosterone and expect to just feel great.
Yeah. But we do have options even for other people outside of that too. We have patients that come to us and we can do a liver cleanse first. We can give them some support.
The liver cleanse has been super helpful.
Yeah.
That's been really good. Yeah.
It's been life-changing for a handful of our patients, even before doing their blood work and getting them started on the hormones. So at least we're kind of cleaning up on a cellular level first and giving them a fair chance, because a lot of people aren't even aware of how inflamed they are.
Yeah.
And so even taking the right things and doing all the right things, they're not going to get the optimal results that they could.
They're setting their bodies up to receive and absorb the hormones a lot better.
Yeah. So overall, I would just really recommend that everybody kind of just, when they get to the point of starting on hormone replacement therapy, like trust the process. You didn't get here overnight. Trust your team. Make sure that you follow directions and read thoroughly. And
try to avoid Google, Facebook groups, forums, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, be mindful when it comes to like alcohol and processed foods and processed sugars. Like clearly, if you're doing all the other things, but you're still drinking 4 or 5 drinks a night, you're not going to get optimal results.
Yeah. Those are the guys that we tend to see that have some of those side effects with testosterone, like that'll get some acne or some water retention or things like that at the beginning. It typically aligns with the guys that eat a lot of processed foods and drink a lot of alcohol. We see those side effects occur a lot more with that population.
In all reality, I would just kind of like to challenge you even to look in the mirror. Like if you are following directions, if you're eating healthier, if you're exercising and you're still feeling this way, like what else could you be doing differently instead of trying to always put the blame back on even like the clinic that you're working with, whether it's us or another clinic.
Or just the process in general. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, what are you doing everything that you can be doing on your side?
Yes.
For sure.
Cleaning up those areas that, only you know if you are or aren't doing.
Yeah. I think that's super important. I think that's probably the best takeaway for people. I mean, if you you're doing this for a reason, you've chosen to, kind of take control of your health and do hormone therapy or hormone optimization, but what about all these other areas? And it's really just like low hanging fruit, to be honest. I mean, everyone knows how to clean up their diet and move their bodies a little bit every day.
Yeah. And it's an investment. Like you came to work with us and you're spending the money and the time, like you should be capitalizing on all areas that you can help improve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One cool thing is like we have really built a really good community. So if you guys need help when it comes to diet, nutrition, and exercise, we have really good connections that can help you with that specialize in that, because yes, we know what we're doing in those areas, but we really want to stay in our lane. Yeah.
I mean, we do hormones and, we can advise our patients on some of those other areas, but it's great to have, a dedicated team of referrals out there that we can send people to for different needs for, like you said, whether it's diet or exercise or coaching or anything like that.
Yeah, but for anybody out there listening, like if you are already addressing these issues, you should be so proud of yourself, because that is really the first step. And then everything else is just going to help amplify what you're doing.
And just give yourself time. Remember that it's a long road, and it's, even though we talk a lot about, libido and energy and mood and some of these things that you'll start to see happening right away, but, the real benefit, in the long-term health advantages, they really come, year, 2 years down the road and further.
And the most frustrating part is, like, especially for women, I know that first they usually want to see that weight coming off, especially in the midsection. And unfortunately, that's like the last thing as women that we see. And it can take like upwards of a year to really get those benefits. But that's where we do have some cool tools that we have been trained with using, like tirzepatide and stuff like that, or other peptides as well.
And you should be, I mean, you should honestly expect that if you're losing weight the right way and letting your lifestyle and letting your hormones kind of help your body naturally, increase its metabolism and find like a healthy weight, that's a good sign that you're not going to gain it all back, because that's the problem we see with these people that you can take a high dose of tirzepatide and lose 20 pounds in a month or lose 40 pounds in 2 months, but all those people gain it back all the time because they're not doing it the right way.
Once again, we just want to thank you for joining us today. And if you enjoyed our podcast, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we would love to see you next time. Thanks,
you. Guys.